Hey my people, today I'm going to figure out whether or not my new health insurance for the new year is going to cover my chronic illness. So I have multiple sclerosis, for those that don't know, and I also have another chronic condition in my household, and that is my son who has autism. So we have a lot of things to make sure that we cover. There's also some extras that I'll be talking about throughout this video, but I really want to walk through the things that I do to figure out whether or not my insurance is going to cover what we need for next year. So now that it's open enrollment, I go ahead and do my very first search. My very first search is always going to be my providers. I personally love my neurologist. I love my son's neurologist. My husband also has a neurologist because he has chronic migraines. So he also takes a specific medicine for that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But all of these things are very important, and you do not want to start the new year, have to go to the doctor and find out that your provider is not covered. So what I do first is I filter for providers, and I don't look at the plans. I don't look at anything like out-of-pocket maximum or deductibles or any of those fancy, insurance terms. I just look for my providers. So once I get a list of my providers, I have them written down, search for all of them, then I'll go through and start looking through those. My second filter is always going to be our medications. I definitely don't want to get into the new year and go to the pharmacy and find out that my insurance doesn't cover the very expensive medicines that we have to take in my house. I'm very lucky with my chronic condition. Back in 2021, I took this crazy chemo drug called Mavenclad for those other MSers out there. And it was amazing for me. It was like a miracle drug. So I haven't actually had to take any more MS medicine since then. And it's been quite a few years now. So I'm very excited about that. So thankfully this next year, I don't really have to worry about, fingers crossed, having to take any more medicine, but I always want to make sure that kind of the things that I might need are covered. So I'll definitely look up Mavenclad to make sure, just in case I do have a relapse and do need more medication. So I check that out, check off the migraine medication for my husband, check off mine. My son doesn't take any meds, but he does have a lot of providers. So he goes to therapy 30 hours a week. So he has a lot of providers that I check off on my first filter. So my first filter is providers, second filter is medication. And then finally, I think about, what's this next year going to look like? We work from home. My son goes to school, and I have a 1-year-old daughter who is developing typically, and thankfully she doesn't take any medicine, but she sure does like to get sick. So she'll be going to the doctor quite a few times in the year, I'm sure, and getting some antibiotics and whatnot. So in the questionnaire, when you fill out your application for the next year's insurance, you want to make sure that you're looking for the frequency. And for me, I always put medium to high because it depends on the year. We're not planning on going out of the country or anything like that, so hopefully we won't get very sick. And the other thing that's really confusing that I really wanted to discuss is the high deductible versus low deductible, and having an HSA versus not having an HSA. So in the past, I have chosen to have a health savings account because my W-2, my job, deposits money into it. So I have to put that into my calculation. Usually if you just Google what kind of insurance you should get for a chronic condition, you'll find hands down that it's a low deductible insurance. And that's because you're going to be paying, it's basically, the thought is that you'll pay less out of your pocket, and then before the insurance starts to pay more. So while that makes a whole lot of sense, I haven't chosen that plan because my job deposits like $1,500+ every year into my HSA. And when I do the math, which I can do a separate video to really dig deep into the math because I really love insurance math, so I'll share that with you guys in another video. But if you have an employer that's going to deposit money into your HSA, you want to take that money into account and kind of deduct that from your deductible amount, because that's free money for you. And an HSA is also tax-free. So the money that I put in there from my paycheck is tax-free. So I have to take that money into account as well. So with all that said, I actually don't go for the low deductible, even though we have chronic illness and my son has autism and all that stuff. I actually go for the high deductible plan because in the end, I can use the HSA, which you can't use an HSA